Hello and welcome to another episode of the O3C podcast coming to you from O3C Games. My name is Jonathan Dunn, actively listening to Chris Dow.
Chris Dow is my name.
And we are celebrating the year that was 2025 in games.
Ooh.
Thanks for listening to the show for the last year. Hope you've enjoyed it. We're still doing it, and and we plan on doing it for another year. So why not continue listening? Something that would help is to share the podcast around a bit. Why not? Do you know somebody who might like it? Send it to them. Share it on your social media platforms. We are at O3C Games on everything. Chris, it's been a year of games, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It really has. It really has. You know what? It's actually been a bloody good year.
I agree.
It's been, there's been several times on the podcast over the last year where I've said, game of the year? Maybe. And several times when you've said, probably 5 out of 10.
Although saying that, I would say, compared to last year, I've played way more contemporary games this year. And a number of contemporary games, not necessarily like huge sort of big budget games, but ones that were in the zeitgeist enough for me to go, okay, it's worth maybe having a look at. And then I've come away going, yeah, it was worth it actually. That's a bloody good game. And I didn't really do that last year. So something in at least the sort of gaming release landscape has changed enough to make me feel a bit more invigorated and interested in kind of keeping up in a way that I haven't really bothered with for a while. So that's been nice.
There we go. And I played a Call of Duty game. I mean, an old one, but
you loved it.
We're going to be awarding some games, our game of the year and a runner-up game of the year. We're going to do that. We're going to look forward to the games of next year. We're going to spend a little bit of time reflecting on Playdate. That was a huge part of this year. Season 2 of Playdate was absolutely fantastic. And we've got an interview coming up in a bit with Kip Henderson, who's the creator of Taria Como, which was the flagship game of Season 2. Really, really good chat. And a good way for us to reflect and remember the excellence of Playdate Season 2. Let's start with the rundown of the games that we've completed. For the last few years, you've been attempting to beat 52 games in a year. I sort of joined you in that a couple of, the last couple of years, but I haven't this year. But I am absolutely sure that I have probably put in as many hours as you've put in to all the games you've played in one game.
Oh yeah, indubitably. Definitely, yeah.
So I'm going to go first with my completion list. This is only games completed. So I've put, a lot of hours into things like, I don't know, Mario Kart World or Tony Hawk's 3 and 4, both of which, put a lot of hours into. And I reached a point of satisfaction with, even if I didn't fully, complete it. Also 2 Point Museum, which I've put loads of hours into. I don't think I'll ever be able to check that off as completed. I'm also in the middle of, playing through a handful of games that I might finish before the end of the calendar year, such as Metroid Prime 4, Thief VR, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2.
Oh, nice.
Got Kirby Air Riders. And, but yeah, anyway. These are the games that I completed in 2025. And I've split this into 2 sections. Short games. Here we go. On mobile, Lost for Swords, Please Touch the Artwork 2 and Storyteller. On Playdate, Dig Dig Dino, The Whiteout, Long Puppy, Omaze, Chance's Lucky Escape, Tiny Turnip, and Black Hole Havoc. On Switch, Bowser's Fury and The Exit 8. Those are the short games.
Yeah.
Now for the big guns, and I'm going to do this in ascending order in terms of hours played.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so starting with, starting with Doom, The Dark Ages, 15 hours.
That's enough for me.
Yeah.
15 is about the cap.
Yeah. 9 Souls, 20 hours. The Talos Principle, 22 hours. Oblivion Remastered, 30 hours. Ball Times Pit, 30 hours. Monster Hunter Wilds, 40 hours. Hyrule Warriors, Age of Imprisonment, 45 hours. Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, 50 hours. Fantasy Life I, 50 hours. Donkey Kong Bonanza, 50 hours. Pokemon Legends Z to A, 60 hours. Hollow Knight Silk Song, 60 hours. Blueprints, 80 hours. And 1,000 more just thinking about the game.
Yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Future Redeemed, 110 hours. Diablo 4 and Vessel of Hatred, 110 hours. Hades 2, 120 hours. Oh, and Elden Ring Night Rain and the Forsaken Hollow DLC, 310 hours.
Yeah, I mean, even the games I played seriously, they're not going to probably rank higher than, on that little rundown there.
27 hours, I think, is your top.
Is it? Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not. It's 32 hours.
Was that Simpsons Hit and Run?
Simpsons Hit and Run. Oh, no, Disney Speedstorm, 60 hours.
Oh,
You've got on
there we go.
Anyway,
so yeah.
What did you play, Chris? Did you hit 52?
I did. I hit 52 quite recently, actually. And then after the race, it's been over the last few years, it's felt relatively comfortable for a change. There's been a couple of years in a row now where I was basically hitting 52 on New Year's Eve or thereabouts, whereas now it was kind of beginning of December. There was a nice little buffer, but it has meant that I've just basically stopped worrying about it now and stopped trying to beat anything. So I'm just jumping between odds and sods and sort of mopping up some of the things I wanted to try out from this year that didn't get round to. There's a real mixture of games here. I've left mine in kind of a chronological list. You can very much track when I was playing the Playdate for season 2. You can very much track when I was right back into retro achievements because of the games that are going to pop up. And you can kind of see as well when I was particularly taken by a slightly larger game as well. But you're absolutely right that none of my efforts came close to how long you are continuing to sink into Elden Ring Night Rain or any of the kind of AAA releases that you managed to 100% within like 7 calendar days of release. Like
I don't know about, mate. I don't know about.
You absolutely don't. So, full list here. I beat Human-Powered Spacecraft, Pools, Sheepy, A Short Adventure, Sheepy, another game with the same name because I got them mixed up, Temtem Swarm, Tokyo Extreme Racer, Disney Speedstorm, Club Nintendo Picross, Gunfield, Tetris Forever, Bionic Heart, Pago Forest, Dragon's Revenge, Planet Lander, Classic Racers Elite, Chime, Apostle, Home is Where One Starts, Mappy Kids, Draugen, Vida, Squareboy vs. Bullies Arena Edition, Freshman Year and How Do You Do It, Harold's Walk, SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge, Columns, Blueprints, that's a good one, Dig Dig Dino, Chance's Lucky Escape, Limbo, Bowser's Fury, Bee Simulator, Monster Attack, Geometry Survivor, Atomorph, Egghead, Shanghai, Adulting, Shanghai 2, Dragon's Eye, Bitterroot, Tetraminos, The Simpsons Arcade, Tetris on the PC-88, WarioWare Inc. Mega Microgames, Jetpack Joyride, Sonic Eraser, Felix the Cat, The Exit 8, Johnny Trigger, The Invincible, Fortress, Fast and Furious Arcade Edition, and number 52 was The Simpsons Hit and Run.
I mean, there's a little bit of overlap, isn't there?
There's some.
You know, like, I mean, I played Pago Forest, Dragon's Revenge, you know, and I had a lovely time with Freshman Year plus How Do You Do It?
Yeah, they're
20
good
minutes.
ones. They're good ones.
Yeah, goodness me. Well, before we dive into what games we absolutely loved, what were our highlights of the year, here are some games that we didn't get round to playing that came out this year that we probably would have liked to. I mean, the big one for me was Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, which I started and thought was absolutely wonderful. I thought that it was going to be more of a classic sort of turn-based RPG. I didn't expect it to have, like, real... I don't know what you call it. It's turn-based, but it also requires very active.
Yeah, it's real timing based, isn't it, in terms of how the battles progress.
And when I started the game, I was like, I don't know if I've got it in me to pay attention. I just sort of wanted to luxuriate in the world and the story and everything. So I was like, you know what, I'll put it on the side until I'm sort of in a better frame of mind, to play it, which I will do at some point. Split Fiction, I know is meant to be very, very good. Death Stranding 2, I'd probably like to play. I'd like to play Death Stranding 1 as well at some point.
Yeah.
Shinobi Art of Vengeance, I'd really like to play. I played the demo on Switch 2, but it hasn't had an actual Switch 2 version yet. The game felt amazing to play, but because of the graphical style of the game and the way that 720p doesn't scale up cleanly to 1080p, it looked really like unpleasant to play on Switch 2.
That's a shame.
So I'm hoping that it will get either, a patch or an official Switch 2 edition at some point, and then I'll absolutely buy it. Kirby Air Riders, I've made a very, very brief start on, but I haven't really properly played that yet, but I'm looking... Fuck off. But I'm looking forward to playing some of that over Christmas. The Outer Worlds 2, I'd probably like to play, and Avowed from Obsidian as well, which was their Elder Scrolls to Outer Worlds is Fallout.
Yeah, essentially.
Sword of the Sea, which is the latest game from Giant Squid, who made Absinthe and The Pathless, and is the company that came out of that game company, who have made Journey and Flower and Flow. Again, it's something I've made a start on, and it's wonderful, but I just haven't really got into it. But I have recently bought a PS Portal, and I'm planning on taking it down to Kent for Christmas when I'm with my parents, mostly so I can see how it handles beaming my PS5 across the Welsh-English border for some night rain. So we shall see. But things like Sword of the Sea, that might be something I play over Christmas, or even Clair Obscur, but that will depend on the lag.
Yeah.
So we shall see. But yes, I mean there's several games on there that are probably on people's Game of the Year list. I mean, in fact, there are games that have one Game of the Year on that list that I have not played. What did you not play this year, Chris?
I mean, as it's been for quite a few years at this point, the contemporary games I didn't play far outweigh those that I did. But like I mentioned, I did make more of an effort in 2025 to try and be a bit more on the pulse with at least some of the kind of mid-tier AA games and indies. Some of the games I'll list here, I have started, but I've only played for like an hour or two and then got sidetracked away from. And when games can be 50, 100, 150 hours, like a couple % of its runtime doesn't really feel like I played it.
Yeah.
I know what it is, I could say, rather than I appreciated and enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, like the hour I've played of Clair Obscur is akin to me reading the blurb on the back of the box.
Yeah, basically. You haven't even done the prologue yet. To pick up a few you already mentioned, Outer Worlds 2, absolutely. Love the first one. I don't have an Xbox, so it would be something that I'd have to muddle through on a handheld PC, but I'm very keen to give that one a look when it comes down in price a bit, because it's still like 60, 70 quid now if you're going to buy it digitally. Kirby Air Riders is another thing that I think I could either get very into, or I might just bounce off immediately.
Yeah.
I didn't play the global test demo thing that Nintendo put out before release, which means I've been a bit more reluctant to pick it up. But maybe in the new year, I'll grab it in a fallow period of Switch 2 releases. I was keen to play the Dragon Quest 1 remake, but I didn't. I was keen to play the Freedom Wars remastered release that updated like a niche Vita action RPG that I quite enjoyed, but I didn't. If Georgia and I had finished It Takes Two, I definitely would have grabbed Split Fiction that you mentioned as well. But seeing as the previous game in this unofficial co-op collection is still unbeaten, it seemed a bit pointless. I wanted to tick that off first. For my crappy taste, I was tempted by the re-releases of titles like Glover and Gex and Croc that all had modern kind of updates, but for whatever reason, I just didn't grab any of those either. So maybe at some point I will. I mentioned last year at this time when we were talking about what's coming out in 2025 that I had every intention of grabbing Indiana Jones for the PS5. Didn't do that, but maybe 2026 is the year. I was quite intrigued about Forza Horizon 5 coming to the PS5 as well, if only for the novelty of seeing more Microsoft games on a Sony machine. But I realised I just didn't have it in me to pay like full price to install a 150 gigabyte game to play for a couple hours and then just stop. The time of these kind of download games is starting to rankle a bit. I don't have the worst internet connection, but for that size of game, that's the day almost, like doing other things at the same time. And I'm not always good enough at planning ahead to know that I want my Sunday to be games day, so Saturday is installing day kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've recently played a few hours of... carry on.
No, I was going to say, think of it as if you can put it in the frame of mind of like, actually, I'm going to go and buy that game today. I need to make time to go out and buy that game.
And enjoy it the next day when we come home from the shops.
Exactly.
I've recently played a few hours of Oblivion Remastered. I'm quite enjoying it. I wouldn't say that's necessarily a game for me normally, but for, the first chunk, I'm quite enjoying. But again, 2 hours in Oblivion is not really beating the game. I'm still going on Demon School, but that is one I have put more time into. But I still think it's worth saying I didn't finish it, although I did want to. I've played a lot more of Clair Obscur over the last couple of weeks, especially because it's the game du jour post the Game Awards. But I've not finished that yet. From the Switch 2 launch, I still have my Cyberpunk save begging to be picked up.
Of course, yeah.
And that's a game that Georgia sarcastically asked for every time I turned the Switch on because she was enjoying watching it. And then I just stopped dead like I often do. So she's always like, do you want to play that game that you spent 60 quid on? I'm like, I don't know, probably not. I didn't even finish Donkey Kong.
Did you not?
No. No. So I've got some on my tongue. I did import a physical copy of Fantasy Life I for the Switch 2. Just didn't play it. even when you were kind of like talking it up and I was like, I could really get into that. And I just didn't bother. But I think the most egregious omission for me, for my taste, was the absence of Tetris, the Grandmaster 4. An actual bona fide new Tetris game came out this year that I didn't pick up. And the Grandmaster series is like the most hardcore of Tetris series. Had its first entry, essentially number 4 was the first entry in 20 years. And as well as it being the first entry that was not an arcade game, like it came to Steam, just, that's where it was. It released on PC. Yeah. And I wanted to play it, but if I'm being honest, the series has always scared me a bit because I would conservatively say I'm pretty good at Tetris, but the skill level required to make any progress in sort of these TGM games is just bananas. Like the first 2 arcade entries came to Switch just a year or so ago. I grabbed both straight away, and progress up the leaderboards was so hard fought, it like put me off investing in the 4th game when that dropped because the old releases were like, oh, it's a £5, whereas the new release was like, oh, it's £40. So I was like, I don't know if I want to be bad at a game for £40 and just like mashing my head against it. So maybe, the Steam...
Elden Ring.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Steam Winter Sale starts today as of recording. So maybe it's had a skim in price on that. So I'll check it out later. But, will I ever find any time to play any of these games? No, obviously. But, I can pretend. We'll see in the future.
Yeah. I mean, as I said at the start, it has been basically wall-to-wall Game of the Year contenders.
Yeah.
It feels.
Yeah, there's been a lot.
Year. Like there's... Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the first one really was. Maybe Donkey Kong, when Donkey Kong Bonanza came out.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, whatever the first game was I played in January was the first contender. That's how it works. But Donkey Kong Bonanza, it felt like the first like must-have game for Switch 2.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It was slick, satisfying, very, very entertaining. It just didn't quite have that magic something, that elevates it to Mario Odyssey levels of brilliance. Speaking of having a magic something, Blueprints was so unbelievably brilliant and gave us the type of experience we had with The Witness that nothing else has come close to, bar Animal Well for me last year. But because I wasn't comparing notes with anyone else while playing that, it didn't, capture that lightning in a bottle. If we were giving out an award for multiplayer game of the year, I would give it to Blueprints because much of the enjoyment of that game was talking with other people about it, comparing notes, swapping theories, dropping hints to others to, try and find something new. Absolutely amazing. Wonderful, wonderful gaming experience. But as with cinema, most of the notable games this year were sequels or spin-offs, including, my sort of top 3 contenders. Even some potential late contenders in the form of Metroid Prime 4 and Thief VR are sequels. And, I mean, I'm enjoying both of those games. They're not going to trouble the top 3. But, I'll feed back on them properly in the next proper episode. So first up, Hollow Knight Silksong. I mean, it's a game that's just so perfectly designed, so expertly realized in every single detail that it's almost painful to behold. It is painfully difficult to play, but never without reason or purpose or intention. It basically takes everything from the first game and steps it up giving you a new character to play as with a more varied skill set and scope to customize your play style, a vast, sprawling, dangerous world that is every bit as intriguing and terrifying to explore as the first game, and a continual raising of the ceiling in terms of difficulty and, in turn, satisfaction that continues all the way to the end of the game. It is baffling that this game was developed so fully behind closed doors. You know, this sort of experience needed to have been user tested within an inch of its life to get it to the point of, you know, this perfect balance that it is at. But Team Cherry were just happy to keep it cooking in their ovens for just as long as it needed.
Yeah.
And perfection they have achieved. And apparently, even though they said that it wasn't, there is more content coming in the form of the recently announced Sea of Sorrows, I think it's called Sea of Sorrows DLC, which they're just going to release for free next year.
Kind of them.
It is. I mean, it's kind of them to give us the game for, you know, like 20 quid in the first place and piss everyone else off. But I mean, I think I said it at the time when I was playing it that, you know, if the first Hollow Knight game wasn't for you, then this is absolutely not for you. But if you loved Hollow Knight, then this game is going to deliver on all your expectations, no matter how high they are, and blow them all out of the water. Another indie darling another indie darling from years past got a sequel, fortunately in a very differently genred wheelhouse. That is the roguelike masterpiece Hades, and now Hades 2.
Yeah.
Much like Silksong, Hades 2 picks up where Hades 1 left off, building on its brilliantly, you know, realised structures and core mechanics and adding a whole bunch of new stuff to take the game, you know, to a whole other level. And whilst Hades 2 doesn't have, like, the immediacy of Hades 1, the core foundation of Milenoe's weapons and mechanics, they're more broad and less easily defined. And whilst this might be initially a little disappointing, in time you realise just what those broader foundations are equipped to withstand being built upon it. And that is something so much more varied, versatile and vast than anything the first game was able to offer up. It just saw me gleefully romp through all of the end game, all of the post game, all of the post game. Even after 110 hours spent with the game, I wanted more.
More, please.
It's just absolutely incredible game design. It's true that, like, the narrative of the game isn't quite as concise and clean as Hades 1, but it's still a phenomenally epic tale with so many fully realised, fully voiced characters that it was just a joy to luxuriate in the world in between the incredible moments of gaming. Like, just an absolute treat and a real delight as well to be able to play it on Switch too. It was just lovely. Getting like one roguelite of this quality would, if I got one of these like every 4 or 5 years, that would be enough. You know, like I'm still going back to The Binding of Isaac, however many years on now.
Yeah.
But in addition to Hades 2, we also got another roguelite of the very, very highest order this calendar year, as Elden Ring Night Rain is by far the game I've put the most amount of time into this year, which is mad when I put in over 100 hours into 3 other games as well. I probably wasn't initially, I wasn't initially entirely convinced with the concept of an Elden Ring spin-off framed as an online co-op roguelite. Like, I famously don't like playing online, certainly not with random strangers. Although, you know, I've had decent experiences with stuff like Monster Hunter from time to time, although I've also got several, you know, memories of absolute arseholes
ruining your hunts.
Yeah, basically. But like my enduringly favourite online gaming moments playing with randoms has come from when I've summoned people to fight alongside me in the Dark Souls games or in Elden Ring. And if Night Rain, you know, was able to hone that experience, then it would work. But there were so many unknowns going into the game. I managed to take part in the pre-release network test and was still a bit unsold on the concept. I was always going to buy the game and give it a proper go. And, after a few runs, it started to get its hooks into me. And before long, I was just having an absolute whale of a time exploring this whole new style of game in the familiar framework of FromSoft. Like, there were so many things I didn't expect with the game. Like, I knew that I was going to have some cool characters to play as, some cool weapons to find and fight with, and some cool bosses to take down. What I wasn't expecting was the single player side of things to be so fully realized, with storylines and quests for each of the characters that would help then give you different impetus for going on more and more runs, rather than just the enjoyment of the loop and finding relics at the end that you could then equip for future runs that would help enhance various different characteristics. The crazy thing, thinking about it now, is that I put in well over 100 hours into the game before I actually played it with friends online. And actually, I didn't even play it with friends online. I actually made friends with people I played with online by coincidence. And I think I recounted
this. That's nice.
It is. I recounted this anecdote when I was playing the game, that I set out on a run as a party of 3 against a big Everdark variant of a boss, which is like the super hard versions. And I can't even remember what happened, but one of the guys basically just quit out. And usually that is like run over, because 2 of you against on a run that's balanced for 3 people is, especially against such a big, horrible, evil, nasty boss. But me and this guy, we carried on, and we managed to win the run. And he dropped me a message afterwards, and basically, and we've been playing the game together ever since. And playing it with somebody you've got a connection with, aside from just being able to sort of message and chat and stuff like that, and occasionally drop a little message, be like, oh no, don't do that, do this, blah, blah, blah. It's just, the game totally came to life then. And me and my friend Luis, who's in Spain, every morning drop each other a message: morning run, lunchtime run, evening run.
What does he do for work? Is he freelance as well?
I'm not going to say, just because I don't want to get him into trouble. But he works from home, so he's able to make it. He's able to make it work. And I've said to him, he's like, maybe catch you for some runs tomorrow. And I'll say, well, I've actually got a lot of editing I've got to do, so absolutely I'll be there for some runs. Sony always do like a year in review. I mean, every company does.
Yeah, they do.
And I checked out my PlayStation, 2025 wrap up, and for the first time there was actually social stats for me to look at, saying you play multiplayer hours, 299 multiplayer hours. You made 7 new friends, as in added friends on the PlayStation Network. 2,978 messages sent, and it's like
to Luis.
Mostly, yeah. And like my gaming's never looked like that until this year, and that's an absolute joy. The really nice thing is there's a third friend that we've made between the 2 of us now as well, a guy called Mo, who lives in Morocco, and the 3 of us, we'll play it together. It's the absolute best. Inevitably, obviously our playtime started to wind down a little bit after a couple 100+ hours, and when the a couple of new modes came out, we weren't entirely sold on them, but it was great. We'd sort of reached a little bit of a rest point. We knew that DLC was coming. DLC came. When did it come? On my birthday. And aside from the fact that the new content is absolutely brilliant, there's a whole new map, there's 2 new characters that play totally differently, there's new landmarks and new bosses, new things. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. The best thing is that all 3 of us have jumped straight back into the game, and we're playing with each other again. Me and Luis had, we've been chatting about other things, in that sort of break period of playing Night Rain. But it's just so much fun. It's so much fun. The fact that it boils down this whole From Software game experience of like a 40-hour game into a 40-minute run, it just gives you everything you want from that experience. several times a day. It's like, I'm hoping to do a run after recording now. It's like,
Why
it's
not?
just incredible. I mean,
The
on
night is
paper,
young.
the night rain is young. On paper, Elden Ring plus roguelike is obviously the perfect game for me. It was very, very plausible that it just wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked as a game. It wouldn't have worked for me as a game. It just wouldn't have fit with the way I play. But as it turns out, it is the perfect game for me. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. What were your favourite things, Graham? Graham?
It's worth noting that we've known each other for almost 30 years.
Yeah. Do you know who I've known longer?
Graham, your brother.
My brother Graham.
Right, do you want to cue that up again?
Not
leave
really.
it in. Leave it in.
Chris, what were your favourite games of the year? What were your highlights?
Well, last year, I've mentioned a few times, I basically tapped out of trying to engage with the end of year zeitgeist at all, and I named Be Kind to Yourself on the Playdate. It's my favourite experience of 2024.
Rightly so as well.
I mean, I loved it, but there was also kind of a stubbornness to that choice because it was sort of an attempt, I guess, at more genuinely articulating how I felt about games at the time, because it wasn't that year I didn't play little bits of lots of games, but I didn't really commit to anything. And I found that when I really thought about it, the only game I played a lot of was Be Kind to Yourself. So it kind of, it won by default as the thing that I kept coming back to. I enjoyed again and again. But this year it feels very different again, because my play history still hasn't been particularly neat or sensible or on trend. But I did play and thoroughly enjoy some contemporary games. And notably, there were contemporary games that weren't made by Nintendo for the first time in quite a few years. And the games I've earmarked as potential game of the years stood out because they were games that, I enjoyed in the moment, as I do and as everyone does, but because I'm a weenie, they were also games that I enjoyed thinking about in kind of the spaces away from direct play. They were games that made me think about my relationship with their respective genres. They were kind of like existing in my brain more than they were in my hand when I was playing. So 3 games kept kind of popping up and asserting themselves when I was thinking back. Blueprints, Clair Obscur, and Demon School were the 3 games I think that were kind of most impactful for me. They're not particularly similar in genre or tone or structure, but I think they're united by something a bit more abstract, because for me, each game felt like they rewarded your attention and your trust in their kind of like direction and your own curiosity. And they ended up feeling quite personal rather than transactional. That, games can sometimes feel that I'm playing it to beat it and then putting it on the shelf and then it's done. These were they just felt different to me. To throw it back to Be Kind to Yourself again, and I swear at this point, I've talked about this game more than any other media outlet or professional journalist on earth, but it was a game all about, score and precision. And it's very much a game that you played in the hand. Like it was, it's about the responsiveness of doing things in relation to what's going on. And my picks this year are all games that were the most successful when you kind of slowed down and, like I said, played more in your head. The idea that you're playing a game, it's like rhythmic breathing. You're sort of regulating alongside them, taking something on board at the same time. Blueprints, I think, is probably the clearest example of that. As a puzzle game, or more specifically, a Metroidvania, we didn't come up with the term, but it does fit, doesn't it? But it felt like a me game from that perspective. But when you sort of twist from macro to micro, it's a hardcore roguelite. That's what Blueprints is. And because of that, it's systems heavy. It's very almost mathematical. They're not things that I've generally taken to that well historically, but it was the game's setting and setup that makes it work for me as well as it did. And a failed run has never skewered me in the same way like a failure in Binding of Isaac does, because each time I played, it felt like I was visiting a place that was becoming more and more tangible and purposeful and resonant every time I went back. Way back in college, before I went to uni, I became really interested in the concept of psychogeography, which is a term coined by the French situationists. And it was essentially suggesting that our relationship with places and spaces is always more personal than just them being simple passages from A to B. And that environments have like power to unlock and influence your behavior and your emotions, things like that as you travel through them. And Blueprints felt like that because it's a game about ritual and learning a place. And the mechanics are what makes it work as a game. And they are watertight. The resource management, spatial planning, the risk assessment, how you mitigate problems that are going to pop up. All of those things interlock beautifully. they would have made this a game of the year contender even without any additional wrapping and sort of narrative dressing, because the ones and zeros interlock with such elegance that every dead end still feels kind of instructive for how, like, mechanically, logistically, how you should approach your next run. But the thing that set it all apart is how you also kind of foster this kind of self-reflection that's really rare in games that rely so heavily on procedural generation, because all rogue influence games ask that you essentially learn a rule set and then be malleable enough in your approach to play as past shifts, as you need to kind of like move to new directions or goals. And Blueprints is the same, but the magic lies in how the mansion itself starts to feel real rather than just a puzzle box you're kind of working through. So the rooms you draft, they start having their own reputations almost. There's rooms you actively avoid, even if they might help you in a run, because you just get a bad vibe. Like, I hate the dark room, hate drafting it. I just don't like it. Yeah, and stuff like that. And potential drafts then start to feel really like friendly, or sometimes like they're your enemy, even if it could be the key to kind of like making a run work. But you do develop some sort of relationship with them. Over time, you stop thinking in terms of just optimal pass, but you also are thinking in terms of memory. So you sort of go, okay, well, last time I drafted that room, it was because I needed to maximize my key count, and that seemed like the best way to do it. Or sometimes, you go back and think, I drafted that because it was a good place to rest. I knew I'd get a few steps back because it was a bedroom, whatever it might be. This time it comes up again. You're like, oh no, this time I want that room, not because of those things, but because it could be a shortcut, or it could be kind of like a last hurrah that maybe it's going to have just one item that's going to give me a new path. And the house becomes layered with all these kind of ghostly versions of itself. Every one is like leaving an imprint on the next. And I think there's something really interesting and like almost literary in the way that it works as a game, because in the same way, if you read or watch something when you're in your teens and then watch it again in your 20s or your 30s, etc., the media hasn't changed, but you have. And therefore, the way you appreciate it is different. And Blueprints, I think, is constantly shifting your understanding of its rooms and spaces, not necessarily by changing them wholesale, unless it's just the configuration or having a new item in it for, a collectible or whatever, but by altering their context and offering a new lens to see them through. Not even the witness gives over so much time to the player and just says, yeah, we trust you to get this. I think the witness is very open, but it's still more easy to understand what you're supposed to do, even if you don't know how to do it. And Blueprints asks that you take the time to properly absorb your surroundings and just sit with ambiguity, like to notice patterns, to make connections. There's a whole world, I guess, in which Blueprints could have released. And, it might have had a self-populated notebook feature that just like captured all the clues you found. Or it might have had like an in-game checklist of things that you're going to pursue, like which goals you should be working towards. And I'm so happy it found the success it did by just saying, fuck all of that, and making us have a little notebook or phone to write things down or to take pictures or whatever. And I think the IRL way of playing Blueprints made Mount Holly Estate feel tangibly real, because I was drawing pictures of it. The situationist Guy Debord would have been chuffed. I'll say, to go back. Now, if Blueprints was spatial and introspective, Clair Obscur is something else entirely, because it's much more linear in its narrative, but it's very expressive in its combat. And obviously, this is very much flavour of the month after its Game Awards sweep, where it won basically everything, and now everyone hates it because that's what people do. But I genuinely feel almost all of the praise is warranted. And it's a game that felt extremely confident in its identity from the moment it starts. Like, there's very little easing in. And even during the prologue, the little bit that you've played, it just kind of says, okay, this is what you're working with. It throws down its emotional stakes very early on, and it just lets you get on with it. And when I talked about this game previously, I said that RPGs need to succeed across three pillars to keep me personally interested. It's got to have something in the narrative, it's got to have something in the aesthetics, and it's got to have something in the mechanical design as well. And what really set Clair Obscur above the rest for me were how its look and sound was so immediately compelling, but then how seamlessly its narrative themes are woven into its battle mechanics as well. Because the whole world is about time and like the inevitability of death and loss and things like that. And the combat system kind of reflects that by making every action be very deliberate and consequential. And like you said, the reason you didn't want to play it when you started to, the battles are never filler. You have to be present to play them. And there's a lot of learning. You could essentially say the battle system is a Souls-like meets Paper Mario, because it's got that kind of like parrying and dodging and attack timing and stuff like that. But on top of that, you've then got a skill system that really asks you to layer and organize your skills across the party to maximize your output. And it really feels appropriate to push yourself to execute each encounter as cleanly as possible, because it feels appropriate to the story being told at the same time. And there's kind of an urgency to what the cast are doing, and therefore it feels like there's an urgency for me to do it properly in battle as well. The optional challenges are always optional in this game, but they're almost always irresistible to me as well. And I've picked the game up in the last few days, since it had its big Game Awards parade. In one bonus fight, I failed it like 7 or 8 times in a row, just making no progress at all. And I took a step back and I properly sort of considered the order of my moves and the rhythm of what I was trying to do to parry and why I was failing. And I had to basically think in my head, what is the plan? I know I can beat this, but I have to have a plan. I can't just try and like riff it on the evening. I've got to think about what I'm doing. The reward at the end, just a new hairdo. Yeah, but it's basically a hat. But when I beat
totally
it,
worth it.
I'm wearing that fucking bouffant with pride. Because when you succeed, it's because you understood something, not just because the numbers were tips in your favor.
Yeah.
It would probably be easier if I was a higher level and I could come back and I'd do more damage or whatever. But I did it at the level I was because I thought, what do I need to understand? And with the skills I have, what can I do to maximize my chance? And when you get that right, it's great. Aesthetically, I think the game is gorgeous. The vinyl soundtrack as well went up for pre-order like a few days after I started playing this a few months back. I'm counting the days until it arrives at my door. I really, really love it. It's a very French game. Its francophone background, I think, is never window dressing, and if Thank Goodness You're Here was inherently British, or more specifically, inherently Northern, I think Clair Obscur wears its nationality proudly on its sleeve. Like the artistic influence that the Belle Epoque movement informs everything, the architecture, the costume design, the musical tone. And I still maintain this game is better played in French than in English because of that. Just because it reinforces like a game-wide cohesion. It just grounds everything in like a cultural specificity that gives the world like texture and credibility. It never just feels like it's generic fantasy that's been dressed up with like a little kind of Euro flourish. It's proudly of the land of its creation.
Yeah.
So Blueprints was a roguelite that made me care about roguelites. Clair Obscur was an RPG that made me, the non-RPG enjoyer, start to care about RPGs. Before my final pick, I should mention Luminez Arise. I know I talked about it a lot last month. I thought it would loom large over whatever I actually narrowed down as my favourites for the year. But the more I've played it, the more I've enjoyed it, the more I've thought about it. It's still the same thing I mentioned last time, last month. It's a spectacular puzzle game, mechanically refined, visually stunning. It will remain in heavy rotation for me long after I drop all these other games I'm talking about. But it stumbles because it exists in obvious dialogue with Tetris Effect. And those existing together is what holds it back from being the top tier. Yeah. Luminez Arise is brilliant at what it does, but it can't escape that comparison. It never claimed to be a sequel, never claimed to be, it's the spiritual follow-up, but it did because of its audiovisual language. It was very clearly them saying, do you remember that? Have a go at this. Yeah. It's impossible not to do that. There's incredible craft in Luminez Arise, but there's an unshakable sense that it's orbiting a feeling that's been expressed better.
Yeah.
So finally, in my 3 of the actual best, we got Demon School. And this is a relatively new release. I mentioned it last month. I think it feels handmade in the best possible way. And I explained last episode why it worked so well for me as someone who's earwigged on its development essentially for years. But the more I've played, the more it's clicked. And that's no longer purely just because I see like the Wallace and Gromit fingerprints of the director. Instead, it's just because it works as a game. I think the combat system, again, is the obvious standout, similar to Clair Obscur. By separating out kind of your planning from actual execution, it makes these tactical battles into the grindstone style choreography, and I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Clair Obscur is turn-based, but it still requires moment-to-moment reactions, like a rhythm game almost. But in Demon School, you're building these routines or these sequences, and you just take as long as you fucking like to do it. And having that space, it just fundamentally changes how you think about success and failure. Because when things do go wrong, or you don't quite achieve what you thought you could have, it's never because your reflexes weren't fast enough. It's just because your plan wasn't elegant enough. You can make it better. You can just restart the battle and have another go. And I think elegance is a good word because it applies so neatly to the other elements of the game too. Like, love the art direction. I think it has a perfect balance between punch and clarity. It's got a bit of that nostalgia bait for the Saturn-esque visuals, which obviously hits very hard for me as a man approaching 40 and maybe you as someone, we grew up with Sega's failed machine. It's got a look that we know. The music too, it does an incredible amount of invisible work because it layers and it shifts and it responds to what you're doing without pulling your focus away too far. But it's everything, there's real warmth to the game. It's quirky without going kind of full kooky. Its characters and the relationships, they might be relatively simple in terms of how they're written, but I think there's a generosity in its writing and world building that makes even throwaway dialogue feel worthwhile. Time passes, little relationships evolve, the world changes subtly. And it just encourages you to kind of linger and revisit places you've been before, just to check in on, see what's happening, what's changed. The battles are why I keep playing the game, obviously, but everything else has that warmth, like I said. So 3 games plus Lumines on the side. They're all very intentional. I think intentionality sort of links them together. Blueprints trust you to observe and infer and just figure things out. Clair Obscur trusts you to engage emotionally, but also mechanically as well. Demon School trusts you just to care about the details of a plan and its execution. But none of these games are really chasing current trends. And I think that's what's really exciting in terms of them being new games, relatively big releases, but not ones that are trying to copy something else necessarily. Because you've got, Blueprints' most obvious inspirations are probably ancient puzzle books or the soft edutainment of Myst and things like that.
Yeah.
Clair Obscur is harking back to the RPG framework of the types of Final Fantasy that Square seem to kind of stop making, because they've moved more into kind of action RPG than kind of the more linear turn-based stuff. And Demon School has such a wild mix of inspirations, ranging from sort of like video nasty Italo horror stuff to the specific rendering limitations of the Sega Saturn. It just makes me think, shouldn't all games properly reflect the taste of their authors rather than the people, fronting the money, I guess? Because you almost always get a better product if someone cares passionately about the thing they're doing. And these 3 games were all that, relatively small teams, Blueprints essentially being directed and created by one guy for the most part. They're incredible achievements for this idea that it's just let an individual's curiosity steer the ship a bit more. And, what a win for small teams, really. What a win for kind of whatever we know indie to mean in 2025. So 3 games that have made me properly interested in modern games again. And that's quite exciting.
That's quite something, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's quite something. So before we look forward to next year, we're just going to look back at one last thing. Because, with all of these big Game of the Year contenders that we've been treated to this year, it's easy to forget that we were also treated to Season 2 on Playdate, which was a fantastic few weeks of Playdate gaming that we spent on our Around the World hiatus. It was an outstanding season of games.
Yeah.
There were really no lowlights, and so many highlights. And we just wanted to... and we thought, as a little way of celebrating the Playdate, we would check in with one of the creators from Season 2, and that is Kip Henderson, who's the creator of Taria Como, which was the flagship game of Season 2. And he kindly gave us some of his time to reflect on the game, its response, Playdate Season 2, and his year in gaming. That's the one. Thank you so much again to Kip for doing that. There's there's a lot more of that interview on. We covered lots more than what I've put in here in that interview, and you can see the whole thing on our YouTube channel. So do go and check that out if you want to hear us chitter and chatter some more with Kipper.
Can't stop yourself, can you?
I can't. His handle is Kipper Doodles, so I feel like I can get away with that. So, looking forward to the games of 2026, what have we got our eyes on?
Ooh.
Shall I tell you what I'm licking my lips at?
Yeah, go on.
Hot off the press from its reveal at the Game Awards, the game I'm now looking forward to more than anything else next year is Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis.
Is that the remake?
That is the remake, yes. It's a brand new remake of the original Tomb Raider, which is a game that I absolutely adore, and I've replayed on a near annual basis in its Tomb Raider Anniversary incarnation, which is also a full remake of the original Tomb Raider game using the much more modern Tomb Raider Legacy engine. And Tomb Raider Anniversary is a game that holds up marvelously, even though... So Tomb Raider Anniversary came out for Tomb Raider's 10th anniversary, and Tomb Raider Anniversary is now 20 years old.
Fucking hell. God.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's
But having,
depressing.
a full modern remake of the game is something that makes me just tingle with joy and excitement, and I cannot wait. Other games that are coming out next year, we've got Saros, which is the new game from the Returnal developers, and it looks to be a spiritual sort of successor to Returnal. It's not a roguelike, so it means I might be able to finish it. Because Returnal, I'm tempted to get back into it though. I'm tempted to get back into Returnal because I never finished it. And it's incredible.
I'm pretty confident you could do it.
Well, I know I can.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it would even take that much for you to kind of just click and do it.
Maybe
January.
I will get back into it. Well, we'll see. The Duskbloods, From Software's next game, which is going to be a similarly, hopefully similar-ish to what they've done with Night Rain, which is an online co-op new game. It looks very, very stylistically similar to Bloodborne. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be canonically related or not. I'm also not sure if it's going to be co-op or if it's going to be PvP or PvE or whatever, but I can't wait. Might not even come out next year, but we'll find out.
You never know.
New Resident Evil game, Resident Evil Requiem. I'm going to get that, play that on PS5. Crimson Desert, I think is one I said I was looking forward to last year, and now I'm looking forward to it next year and this year. I still think it looks a little bit too good to be true, but but the more time they spend on it, and the more it gets pushed back, the more likely is that it will deliver on something. So we'll see. Pokemon Pokopia, I think, has a lot of potential to be a really, really nice, cozy Pokemon game. I'm excited to see how that is. Super Meat Boy 3D is something that's being bandied around.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Heroes of Might and Magic. There's a new Heroes of Might and Magic game coming out. Olden era. It looks to be sort of going back to its roots a little bit, because the series sort of went a little bit off piste with certainly with Heroes of Might and Magic 7, which after I struggled to get it up and running on my Steam Deck, it was crap. So that was a shame.
These things happen.
Because I really enjoyed Heroes of Might and Magic 5 and 6. Nothing is ever as good as Heroes of Might and Magic 3. So, I think they're certainly tapping into that sort of idea. So that'll be cool. And I think there's going to be online co-op. So me and Andy are going to play it together and possibly stream some content for the podcast, which I think would be a lot of fun.
Nice.
Marvel's Wolverine game looks amazing. Hopefully that will come out next year. Also, hopefully it just comes out when it's ready. If that's not next year, that's fine. GTA 6.
No way. I'm going to call it now. It's not hitting 26.
It's not.
I feel quite confident. And, if it does, more fool me. Is that a phrase?
More fool me.
Is it? Sounds awful. Yeah. I don't like saying it.
Of a Genesis song, which is an early song featuring Phil Collins on lead vocals when Peter Gabriel was still the lead vocalist of the band.
Keep that in.
Yeah, I will. That's going at the top. It's going right at the top. We've mentioned The Witness a lot, and Jonathan Blow's got a new game coming out next year, and it promises to be a 250-hour Sokoban style puzzle game.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's better than it sounds. But I think I said to you when I heard about that if you'd have described The Witness as a first-person wandering around doing little maze game, showed me some screenshots, we'd go, okay, that's a shame, because I wanted Braid 2, is what we would have said.
Yeah, and we were wrong. We were wrong.
And
so
we may well be wrong again.
Never know.
What sticks out to you out of those, or any other games that are coming our way in 2020 of the 26s?
I've pulled a whole bunch of stuff out. Like, I had to look at a big list of games set for release because I haven't kept up with much of this. So these are all kind of roughly chronological thoughts. As they get further down, my suggestions, they're ones that don't necessarily have a date, whereas some of the earlier ones, we do have a rough idea of when they're coming window-wise. After realising I lost my Animal Crossing New Horizons save when I jumped from OLED to Switch 2, I'm nervously looking forward to picking up the game Switch 2 upgrade in January, maybe giving it another go. That'd be quite nice, maybe. I'm also quite tempted to give the Final Fantasy VII Remake a shot when it launches on Switch 2. So it's not a new game, but it's coming to the Switch 2 in January. So that could be an exciting thing. In the chunk I played of the original Final Fantasy VII, I had a really good time, and people seem to think the remake's quite good as well. So we'll see. Mario Tennis Fever, still set for Q1 release, despite not being shown in any capacity since its reveal.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
The one on the
cautious about
Switch
that.
was not great, and Mario Golf on the Switch was not that great either. So,
No.
don't know. There's a Coffee Talk spin-off set in Tokyo. I'd be quite keen to check out. But the guiding hand of its original creator will obviously be missing because they sadly passed away very young. The R-Type Tactics collection was meant to launch this year. Don't know how it got bumped back to 26, but it has been. Could be interesting because I played a bit of the original PSP release through emulation at some point. It's quite interesting to see how a reasonably hardcore shoot 'em up was turned into a tactics RPG.
Yeah, I didn't even know that had been done.
Yeah. So I'm quite keen to see if it comes out and if it's had a bit of time and care put into it. I'm definitely not going to play it, but the new James Bond game is coming out this year as well.
Yeah.
In theory, from IO Interactive, the Hitman team. I think if you like Hitman, it'll probably be great. And if you're like me and you can't get into Hitman, you probably shrug your shoulders and say, yeah.
I think it's going to be an opportunity to be a lot more streamlined and linear than
I
Hitman,
would imagine so, but
which I think could be perfect.
Yeah. Again, another one, not for me strictly, but there's a very, very high chance that Georgia will play through the new Lego Batman game scheduled for about mid-year. So I need to know when that is because it means I won't be able to use the TV for a month or so while she chips away at that one like she did the Skywalker Saga. Did you know the Skywalker Saga is well over 100 hours to play through 100%? Georgia did it all.
Of course she did.
She enjoyed it.
Fraction of the time she spent on The Sims.
Anytime I play a game and I'm like, oh, played that for 40 hours, she just says rookie numbers and leaves the room.
Rightly so.
She won't even entertain it as something impressive. Deus Ex Remastered has obviously been pushed back indefinitely after the world gave a big collective sigh at its last kind of lazy graphic update. But if it does launch, I'd give it a go, if only because the original, it's easy to run on something like the Steam Deck. It's not easy to play because it needs a mouse and keyboard. It's never had, controller controls outside of the PS2 version. So if they get that bit right, even if it looks like shit, I'd probably give it a go. The Halo remake is due at some point. Talking about Tomb Raider. Again, it could be fun to make Master Chief run about on my PlayStation. But, I've played the original game and I like it and I can still play it via the Master Chief collection. I don't really need to play it again, but we'll see what they do with it. Or, more likely, I'll probably spend the whole year obsessing over getting some old crusty game from 2005 running on the Steam Deck and then spend even more time completing Zoop on retro achievements. So this is all just an arbitrary exercise and just filling time, really, isn't it?
Just playing 5 out of 10 games and crying over Tetris.
I love it.
Right, we're at the end. Game of the Year awards.
Game of the Year.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
As we did last year, we're going to name a winner and a runner-up each for our personal Game of the Year awards because we both play such different games and look for and get vastly different things out of the games we play too. Having said that, I really hope that you give it to one that I really wish I could have given it to. Chris, what's your runner-up Game of the Year award?
My runner-up is Claire Obscure, Expedition 33. Although it's now like the normie choice, like I said, because of how well it's done everywhere else. I'm pretty happy to have championed it quite a few months ago, earlier in the year. It's an RPG that was able to make me reappraise what I did and didn't like in an RPG, and that's cool for me. So that's why it gets its spot, and I'm excited to play more of it over Christmas because I'm kind of back invested again, having picked up my save again in the last week or two. What about you? What's your runner-up?
My runner-up Game of the Year is, how can you put over 300 hours into a game and not give it Game of the Year?
Oh, it's not it's not Night Rain.
No,
Night Rain's your runner-up.
Night Rain is my runner-up Game of the Year.
That is astonishing. If I was a betting man and this was an open market, I would have bet the farm on that being your Game of the Year. Absolutely bet the farm. It would have been I'm taking additional loans out because this is going to be such a massive payout.
This is Ange getting sacked within 2 months.
Oh man.
It is an utterly brilliantly fun game. It is everything that I really want in a game. It's honestly, the real game is the friends I've made along the way.
It literally is.
It really is. It really is. And I'm continuing to love it. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. The one thing that stopped it being my actual Game of the Year is the Deep of Night mode that they introduced, which sort of was the last sort of thing they introduced before the sort of the break and then the DLC, and it felt like it's a hard mode for the sake of being hard, and it just gets progressively harder for the people that enjoy being miserable. Having said that, I've been doing a few runs as a trio with Luis and Mo, and literally the last couple of days, and it's so much better with 3 people than it was when me and Luis were just doing it as 2.
Yeah.
It was it's feeling like we can chip away at it now, and it's it's an incredible game. It's an incredible game, but it's not my game of the year. What's your game of the year, Chris?
I don't know if this came across when I was doing my kind of little roundup. It's Blueprints.
Yay! Good. I'm so glad.
It is a game of such astonishing craft and consideration. I would be surprised if anything ever matches it again for genuine puzzle depth and design. It is so finely tuned and just endlessly sort of overlapping and self-informing as you play. I don't know how it's physically possible to be made, let alone the core of it being made by such a singular mind.
Yeah,
like it's bananas, absolutely bananas. Yeah, Blueprints, game of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do. And if I hadn't have given my game of the year to Animal Well last year, I think I'd be more inclined to, just because it wasn't for as brilliant as it was and for as novel as it was, it's not like it slapped me in the face for the first time since The Witness.
Yeah.
It's sort
you had that experience.
Yeah, it tickled my beard.
Yeah.
As it were. And likewise, like last year, I gave my runner-up to Balatro, even though I'd put like 200 plus hours.
And I think I was equally shocked then as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My game of the year 2025 is Hollow Knight Silk Song, because it is impossible not to give it to a game that is that perfectly made.
Yeah.
I mean, not only was it incredibly fun and incredibly satisfying to play, every single aspect of that game is so refined. It is astonishing what they've done with it. It's there really aren't any words. It's a perfect game. That's it. You know, it's a perfect game. I don't know though if I prefer it to Eterna Noctis though. Having said that,
at least that's not in contention. So
exactly,
it off in the bin.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when One Battle After Another came out, and it was like, well, that's absolutely my film of the year, 100%. That is the best film I've seen this year. No matter what else comes out, there's not going to be anything I see that is that. It's not in my top 3 films by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah.
That's mad, isn't it?
What are your top 3? Just out of interest. It doesn't have to be on the show.
Magnolia, There Will Be Blood, and Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights is great.
That was 2025. There were some incredible games. Please do get in touch and tell us what your game of the year was. Was it Hollow Knight? Was it Night Rain? Was it Blueprints? Was it Clair Obscur? Was it
some shit that I played that was 5 out of 10? Was it Fast and Furious Arcade Edition?
Was it Fast and Furious Arcade Edition?
Could be.
Yeah.
Someone enjoyed it.
Was it?
No one did.
I don't think anyone enjoyed it, Chris.
It was awful.
No one enjoyed it.
Awful.
It was dreadful.
Not even me.
Yeah. I hope that everybody has had a lovely and relaxing Christmas time and felt the presence and love of friends and family. And everybody finds a nice bit of kindness and positivity to pave their way into 2026.
Yeah.
We will be back on the 1st of Feb with our next Around the World in 80 Games stop in Slovakia. And that'll be great.
Better be.